Don't bother coming tonight. Mother says you're not welcome. This was the curt text message from my husband. It was the evening of the housewarming for my mother-in-law's new mansion. My reply was simple. Understood, darling. They had utterly ignored and shamed me, so I chose to make them regret it. I canceled every payment and reclaimed every last penny. An hour later, they began calling me frantically. Zilia gently massaged her temples. The laptop screen before her displayed a long string of digits confirming a huge sum had just left her account. It was the final installment for a lavish estate in Tuxedo Park, one of the most prestigious residential communities in Atlanta. The house was not for her. It was a gift for her mother-in-law Eudora. Zilia exhaled a deep sigh, shut her laptop, and sank back into her leather executive chair. Being the CEO of a thriving luxury fashion export company, Zilia often made multi-million-dollar choices, yet this one was profoundly different. A persistent bitterness lingered with her. It all began 3 months prior when her husband Tiberius had approached her with a truly pitiful expression. Tiberius was a decent man, or so she believed, but regrettably he was completely subservient to his mother's every wish. That night, Tiberius sat beside Zilia, taking her hand to begin his usual tactics. She had heard all too often. "Darling, my mother is getting older," he began. "Her only lifelong dream is to have a nice home for her remaining years." Zilia offered no immediate response. That word decent, as defined by the standards of Tiberius and Eudora, was an extremely relative term. Eudora's current residence was more than adequate, a large condo in Buckhead, yet she always believed something better was missing. Eudora had never cared for Zilia. In her eyes, Zilia was simply a commoner who struck it rich in business. Zilia's position as a mogul, instead of being a point of pride, became a bitter source of jealousy. Eudora felt that as a daughter-in-law, Zilia ought to hand over all her income for her husband and herself to control. Of course, Zilia refused. She had poured her blood, sweat, and tears into building her company, and intended to use her funds for clear purposes only. However, Tiberius was her one weakness. "Which house are we discussing, my dear?" Zilia had asked in that moment. "It's that one in Tuxedo Park that Mother visited. She claims the air is purer there, and it has a nice garden." Tiberius answered pointedly, avoiding Zilia's eyes. Zilia nearly choked on her breath. Tuxedo Park was among the priciest neighborhoods in all of Georgia. She knew the area's market values intimately. "That isn't just a simple house, it's a small palace. Tiberius, the price is outrageous. We are in the midst of expanding the business." Zilia attempted to reason with him. "Please, Zilia, just this one time for my mother. I swear that after this is done, she will never request another thing from you. I feel such deep shame as a son for not making my own mother happy. Just this one time." Tiberius deployed his greatest weapon, guilt, and just like always, Zilia's resolve weakened. She adored Tiberius and clung to the hope that this sacrifice might finally earn Eudora's acceptance. And so the process of purchasing the house began, with Zilia managing every detail. It was Zilia who negotiated with the luxury property group, she who single-handedly prepared the mortgage documents in her own name. And she alone paid the down payment, which consumed a significant percentage of her very own personal savings. Tiberius and Eudora merely appeared to sign the preliminary contract and to pose for their social media photos and pick out paint colors. During it all, Zilia felt like a walking bank machine. Whenever they met, Eudora never bothered to ask how she was. The inquiries were invariably the same. "How's the house progressing? When will it be finished? What is taking them so long?" "Oh, Zilia, I understand the catering for the housewarming is quite costly. You can handle that, can't you? You wouldn't want to embarrass me before my friends from the club." Zilia bit her lip. The housewarming party was all Tiberius and Eudora had been planning for a week. Tomorrow was the grand occasion, the day they would officially unveil the new house. The irony was that Zilia, who had funded the entire house, was completely barred from having any say in the party planning whatsoever. Her only involvement was receiving the expense reports. Each day, Tiberius would forward a list of invoices: luxury catering, featuring Wagyu beef sliders and imported truffles, floral arrangements flown in from Holland, and invitations printed on the finest quality cardstock. For Eudora's high society friends, leaving Zilia with no option but to wire over the requested sums. That evening, Zilia returned to her own place, a penthouse in Midtown Atlanta. Inside the living room, Tavarius and Eudora were laughing intimately, examining fabric swatches for the uniforms to be worn by the party's service staff. Zilia didn't even know who these employees were. "Ah, Zilia, you're back." Tavarius greeted her with a tinge of awkwardness. Eudora merely shot her a sideways glance before her attention returned completely to the fabric catalog. "Yes, darling, are the preparations coming along?" Zilia asked, setting down her briefcase while forcing a smile. "Absolutely, it's all set. Tomorrow will be Atlanta's greatest party," Tavarius exclaimed. "I'm glad," Zilia replied quietly. "Oh, and Mother Eudora, I've just settled the final payment on the house. It's now entirely ours." Zilia had hoped for at least a single word of gratitude, but Eudora's reaction was startling. She didn't smile, only offered a curt nod. "Ah, good. That was your obligation," she stated curtly. "Tavarius, I believe this gold is far more elegant than the silver. My guests will be thoroughly impressed." Zilia felt as though a dagger had just been thrust into her heart. It's what you had to do. So all of her work, the millions of dollars spent, were simply considered her duty. Tavarius noticed the sudden shift in his wife's expression and quickly moved to diffuse the palpable tension. "Of course, Mother will go with the gold." "Zilia, you look tired. Why don't you go take a bath?" It was his subtle way of dismissing her from their conversation. Zilia nodded feebly and made her way to the bedroom. She felt so incredibly stupid. Why was she still expecting something? Why was she desperately trying to purchase the approval of a woman who so obviously despised her? She left the bedroom door slightly ajar as she began to change. She had to compose herself before she could face them again. That was when she overheard Tavarius speaking on the phone. It seemed Eudora had already departed, and Tavarius was now speaking with her again from the living room. His voice was low but distinctly audible. "Yes, Mother, it's all taken care of. Zilia just wired over the full remaining balance," Tiberius replied. A short silence followed. Zilia could just discern Eudora's faint voice through the phone, and then Tiberius chuckled. "Yes, Mother, don't fret. Our plan is safe." "Good. Are you certain she made the payment today? You know what your part is after that." Zilia's heart felt like it stopped beating. "Our plan is safe. What you have to do?" What did any of it mean? The ominous sensation she had been actively suppressing resurfaced with a vengeance. She desperately tried to believe she had misheard, that it was all just paranoia. But Tiberius's tone, that conspiratorial voice thick with secrets, sent shivers down her spine just after her money was gone. What was this plan they were speaking of? The following day was the big one, the inauguration of Eudora's new house. The party was scheduled to commence at 7 in the evening. Zilia woke with a very troubled heart. The previous night's phone conversation between Tiberius and Eudora refused to leave her thoughts. "You know what you have to do." That single phrase replayed endlessly in her mind. She tried to ask Tiberius about it that morning, but her husband left the house quite early. "Honey, I must go ahead to help Mother with the party preparations. You just take care of things at the company, don't worry about anything," Tiberius said, hastily putting on his shoes. "Tiberius, I can come with you. Perhaps I can help check on the catering or something," Zilia suggested. Tiberius stopped dead in his tracks. He turned around, his expression completely unreadable. "No, Zilia, there are too many people there already, and it's just chaos. You'll only get tired. You're the star of this evening. Just arrive later, looking beautiful, and that's all you need to do," he said, then hastily kissed her forehead and departed. Protagonist Zilia almost let out a bitter laugh. What sort of protagonist? Knows absolutely nothing about her own party. What kind of protagonist bankrolls the entire affair, but isn't even involved? Throughout the entire day at the office, Zilia couldn't focus on her work. She glanced at the party dress, hanging meticulously in her private office. It was a gown she had designed personally, an elegant creation of rose gold brocade. with a matching silk shawl of the same hue. She wanted to look flawless not for Eudora's guests, but for Tiberius. She deeply wanted Tiberius to be proud of her. She had also prepared a very special housewarming present, a work of art by a famous sculptor, that she had personally commissioned 3 months before. At 4 in the afternoon, Zilia decided to leave work early to prepare calmly. On the drive home, she called Tiberius. "My love, what time will you come for me, or should I go on my own? We are matching our colors right." Tiberius's phone rang, but he failed to answer. Zilia sent a text message. The blue check mark appeared, but no response followed. Zilia sighed deeply. He must just be extremely busy. She tried to remain positive. She also decided to call Mother Eudora, just as a formality to ask if she was missing anything. The phone rang 2 times and was then abruptly disconnected. Rejected. Zilia's heart started to race with anxiety. Why would she reject my call? She tried dialing again, but it went straight to voicemail. Did she block my number? No, that's impossible. Eudora is getting older. Perhaps she simply pressed the wrong button by accident. Zilia chanted that mantra inside her head, knowing deep down she was denying reality. At 6 in the evening, Zilia finished her shower and sat before her vanity mirror. She applied her makeup with slightly trembling hands. The dreadful feeling was intensifying, prompting another call to Tiberius. It went straight to voicemail, exactly like Eudora's had. Something was profoundly wrong. Zilia sat motionless, gazing at her reflection in the mirror. The woman in the glass was beautiful and accomplished, yet she looked so pathetic, begging for the affection of individuals who clearly didn't love her. She was bankrolling a lavish lifestyle for people who couldn't be bothered to answer her calls. Tiberius's words from the previous night echoed in her mind. Do you know what you have to do? Was this their ultimate mission then? To cut her out after taking all the money once the house was paid off. A sudden chill ran down her spine. No, it just couldn't be. Tiberius loves me, or he did. At 6:30 in the evening, the party was meant to have started. Zilia remained seated in her room. The beautiful party gown hung untouched, and the costly gift stayed perfectly wrapped. She felt like the biggest fool on the planet. She had prepared herself and applied makeup for a celebration she herself had financed. But she wasn't even certain she was invited. She inhaled deeply, knowing she must end this uncertainty and get a clear answer. She seized her cell phone, launching the messaging application. No more calls. This time she would send a message, forcing Tiberius into honesty. Although her heart was breaking, her manicured fingers typed without the slightest shake. Darling, I'm all ready and leaving now. She sent the message to Tiberius. 2 gray checks appeared immediately. Zilia stared unblinking at the phone's screen, waiting for them to turn blue, waiting for any reply. 1 minute passed, then 5. The phone felt incredibly heavy in her hand. She knew whatever his answer was, it was going to change her life forever. She held her breath as time seemed to stand still. Inside the opulent master bedroom, Zilia's gaze was fixed upon the screen. Her message seemed so naive and pathetic. In the light of the room, those gray checks felt like a taunt. Tiberius had surely seen it. He must have his phone in hand, but he was actively choosing not to respond. A few more minutes crawled by, and Zilia's tense waiting curdled from nervousness into cold anxiety. She listened to the living room's wall clock. It sounded like a slow hammer's strike right at 6:45 in the evening. Suddenly, the phone in her hand buzzed violently. Zilia's heart leaped into her throat as she unlocked the screen with trembling fingers. It was a new text from her husband. Just one single sentence, a phrase that encapsulated every single one of her fears, her squandered sacrifices, and all the humiliation she had endured. You don't need to come over tonight. Mother doesn't want you here. Zilia read the sentence 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. The words refused to register in her mind. They felt alien, like some indecipherable foreign language. The phone gradually slipped from her grasp, landing softly on her lap, which was covered by silk pajamas. She remained seated before the vanity. The mirror showed a stunning woman, flawlessly made up but with vacant eyes. The pricey rose gold dress hanging in the closet appeared to mock its owner's terrible fate. The costly art gift on the bed looked like a monument to her stupidity. The initial shock subsided in seconds, giving way to an acute physical pain, as if a massive hand were crushing her very heart. It was not an, "I'm sorry the party is postponed," nor, "I'm sorry mother feels unwell." It was a brazen, cruel, and intentional rejection. And the sender was none other than her husband Tiberius. He was no mere messenger, he was a conspirator. In an instant, every piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Tiberius's call from last night echoed, "Our plan is secure. You know your part, right?" This was Tiberius's true assignment, to discreetly remove Zilia once all the debts were settled. The house was settled, the party covered. They no longer had a use for Zilia. She was just a depleted cash machine. More memories surfaced unbidden, like the time she scrapped a vital business trip to Paris simply because Eudora claimed to have a minor cold and demanded her daughter-in-law nurse her. The truth was, Eudora merely wanted to boast to the neighbors about how she could command her accomplished daughter-in-law, like a common maid. Then came the memory of her bailing out Tiberius's disastrously failed coffee shop venture. She had drained her company's emergency reserves, yet never received a single word of gratitude from Tiberius or Eudora. Instead, all she ever heard were complaints like, "If you were going to provide funds, you should have given much more. With more capital, I would have certainly been successful." Zilia recalled every one of Eudora's barbs, calling her too stiff and conventional, that her obsession with work made her forget her womanly duties, and the most cutting remark of all, that she was unable to bear children, since she had not yet provided them with grandchildren. In truth, they had been wed for just 2 years, and Zilia herself had delayed getting pregnant, to secure the finances of Tiberius and his family. Throughout it all, Zilia had borne everything, swallowing her pride out of her deep love for Tiberius. She had always believed Tiberius was her ally, thinking he was merely torn between his obligations to his wife and his mother. But this single text message was the damning proof. Tiberius wasn't torn at all. He had made his choice, and it wasn't Zilia. Tears started to well in her eyes, hot and stinging, brimming with humiliation. A sob nearly escaped her lips. She longed to scream, to smash things, to weep uncontrollably, but then she caught her own reflection in the looking glass. Something shifted within her. The tears halted on her lashes, replaced by an anger as cold and sharp as frozen steel. Started coursing through her veins. The hurt didn't vanish, but it transformed, crystallizing into raw power. She was no more the weak woman bemoaning her destiny. She was Zilia, the one who forged a business empire with her bare hands. The woman who brokered deals with global partners, who never shied away from hard choices. And tonight, she was about to make the most challenging yet, simultaneously the simplest decision of her existence. She was not a victim, but an investor who just discovered her entire portfolio was toxic. And what does any shrewd investor do upon finding a bad asset? They liquidate their position immediately. Zilia retrieved the phone from where it had fallen. Her hands were steady now as she reopened the message from Tiberius. "There's no need for you to come tonight. Mother doesn't want you here." She scanned the message a final time, not with anguish, but with utter revulsion. A chilling, cynical smile touched her nude-colored lips. She met her own gaze and whispered, in a quiet tone, "All right, you wanted this war." Her fingers flew across the screen. She composed a brief reply and sent it to Tiberius, a response designed to grant them a fleeting, false sense of triumph. "Of course, my love." With the message sent, she knew Tiberius would read it and feel a wave of relief. Excellent, obedient as ever, Tiberius would likely think to himself. Now I can get back to enjoying the festivities. Intoxicated by her triumph, Zilia abandoned her personal phone on the dressing table. It would serve no purpose tonight. She rose and strode with purpose to the office nook in her bedroom, completely ignoring the festive dress and the present. Settling into her plush executive chair, she slid open a drawer and retrieved a second device, her business phone. A substantial black weighty device, a vault of influential contacts. The business phone screen then illuminated, displaying a portrait of her smiling with absolute self-assurance. This was the true Zilia, The CEO, the woman who commanded it all. She drew a long breath and released it slowly. The atmosphere felt dense. She understood she was about to sever ties in the coming hour, yet she knew it was necessary to erect a new empire from the ruins. Her finger made contact with the screen and located the first name on her speed dial. It read, Mr. Sterling Private Banking. The match had officially commenced. At 7 p.m., Zilia initiated the call connecting to Mr. Sterling, her dedicated private banker, who had overseen her portfolio for the past 5 years. Sterling was the ultimate professional. Madam CEO, a good evening to you. It has been some time since you've reached out after hours. A steady, deep voice resonated from the other end. Mr. Sterling, good evening. My apologies for the intrusion. I have a number of urgent matters that require processing. This evening. I trust you're available. Zilia's tone was a world away from moments before. It held no hint of emotion or hesitation, only a frigid, precise command. Sterling understood the gravity of the situation. Naturally, madam, I am at your disposal. How may I be of assistance? Zilia commenced without delay. First, I need you to terminate all direct debits and payments from my accounts to Tuxedo Park Realty or any affiliated entities, effective immediately. That includes HOA fees, utility bills, everything. Understood. Terminating all direct debits associated with the real estate agency. The sound of Mr. Sterling typing was audible. Is there anything more? Yes, and this is crucial. Zilia continued, regarding the final wire transfer for $2 million that I authorized this afternoon. I'm aware the funds are in the developer's account, but I need to ascertain the name listed on the purchase agreement for said property. Sterling checked the information. The records here indicate that the contract is in the name of a Mrs. Eudora with you as the full guarantor and sole payer. The funds all originated from your account. Excellent, Zilia murmured. Mr. Sterling, I need you to engage the bank's legal department at once. I need that transaction frozen. I intend to reclaim my money. Find a pretext. Any pretext will do. Fraud, coercion, undue influence. It makes no difference to me. I want the property transfer process to become problematic. For that house. A faint sigh escaped from Mr. Sterling. Madam, this is a highly complex matter. The funds are already transferred and rescinding a completed contract. I'm well aware it's complicated. Zilia interjected sharply. I don't retain your services for simple tasks. I am a premier client and my sole priority tonight is to generate a legal impediment for that transaction. I will not be signing any documents concerning the property transfer. Place that house into a formal bank dispute. Is that clear? Perfectly, madam. I am notifying the legal team immediately. I will take every possible measure. Sterling's tone had become gravely serious. Excellent. Thirdly, this is the simplest step. I need you to permanently revoke access for all family cards tied to my primary account, specifically those issued to Mr. Tiberius and Mrs. Eudora. To be clear, this is not a temporary hold, but a permanent termination effective as of 10 minutes ago. That action can be processed instantly. A permanent block for Tiberius and Eudora. It is done. Sterling confirmed. Is there anything further you require? That is all for now. I expect an email confirming all actions within the hour. Zilia stated and ended the call. Without pause, her fingers immediately found her next contact, a Mr. Carmichael, the marketing director for the Tuxedo Park Real Estate Group, whom Zilia had met on a couple of occasions. Hello, Mr. Carmichael. Good evening, it's Zilia calling, the purchaser of the Tuxedo Road estate. Her voice shifted now, laced with a controlled, feigned panic. Ah, Mrs. Zilia, a good evening to you. Is something amiss? I trust the party is going splendidly, Carmichael inquired with a cheerful tone. The party? Zilia let out a short, humorless laugh. Mr. Carmichael, the reason for my call is a severe complication that has just surfaced. I am the sole guarantor and payer for the property, correct? Yes, absolutely, ma'am, 100%. Is there an issue with the funding? I have just received intelligence that I have been defrauded by my own husband and my mother-in-law. They have conspired to unlawfully seize that asset. Pardon me, ma'am. What are you implying? Carmichael's voice escalated. I have no time for a full explanation, but what is certain is that I, as the legal payer, have never authorized any kind of property transfer whatsoever. Consider this your official notification. I am reclaiming all my funds and formally contesting the ownership of that home. The transfer I made this afternoon was under extreme duress. Zilia lied, injecting drama to ensure her point landed. But madam, the payment has cleared and the event is already in progress. Precisely, Mr. Carmichael. Dispatch your team to that location right now, shut down the party, and secure the house. That property is now under legal dispute. I will be signing nothing. If your developer releases the keys to Mother Eudora, I will sue your firm for conspiracy and fraud. Yes, of course, ma'am. Please remain calm. I am dispatching our security and legal teams to the property this very instant. We will immediately freeze the property's status. Carmichael was utterly panicked. A lawsuit from a multimillionaire client was his worst nightmare. Excellent. I will be awaiting your call. Zilia disconnected. 2 dominoes had fallen: the bank and the real estate. Now for the third. She dialed the head of operations at her own company. Langston, my apologies for the late call. I need you to prepare the executive asset recovery paperwork for Director Tavares for the black Cadillac Escalade license plate 1234KK. That vehicle is registered to the company, is it not? Yes, boss. That is the vehicle which was provided to your husband. Langston answered, clearly confused. No, not any longer. First thing tomorrow morning, begin the repossession of that vehicle at 9 o'clock sharp. Have someone retrieve the car from its current location and also freeze his payroll account. He is no longer employed by this company, Zilia commanded. Tavarius held the title of marketing director at Zilia's company, but it was purely a ceremonial gift. His actual contribution was practically non-existent. Understood, boss. I will get on it right away. Zilia hung up the business phone after 3 calls, which took precisely 45 minutes. In those 45 minutes, she demolished the bedrock of the lavish lifestyle Tavares and Eudora were set to enjoy. She stood and walked out of the office. Slipping out of her pajamas, she moved to the bathroom and drew a tub of hot water, adding in lavender-scented bath salts. She needed to relax as she submerged herself in the warm water precisely at 8:10 p.m. The personal cell phone left on the vanity suddenly shrieked to life. Its screen flared brightly. Call from husband. The call went on for a long time, then disconnected. A second later, it lit up again with a call from her mother-in-law, then silenced. Call from husband, husband, husband. The phone buzzed violently on the glass table, filling the room with a low hum. The calls were incessant, a frantic and furious barrage. Zilia simply closed her eyes and leaned her head back on the tub's edge. A faint smile touched her lips. She wouldn't touch the phone. Let them panic. This was only the start. She took a deep breath of the lavender fragrance. Tonight, her sleep would be sound. It was 8 p.m. at Mother Eudora's new home. The party was in full swing. The house was ablaze with light, its newly installed crystal chandeliers sparkling brilliantly, casting reflections on the imported marble floors. Arrangements of lilies and white roses graced every corner, releasing a delicate scent. Classical music drifted through the air, a backdrop to the guests' gentle laughter and the cheerful clinking of champagne flutes. Mother Eudora was the evening's main attraction. She donned a bespoke gown covered in shimmering sequins, her hair in an elaborate style. Her heavily made-up face beamed with triumph as she stood surrounded by her high society companions. Women from the church board and elite social clubs. Everyone was singing her praises. Oh, Mother Eudora, is this a house or a palace? It is truly stunning, exclaimed a woman, her arms covered in gold bracelets. Oh, it's really nothing, Eudora said with false modesty, waving her hand to flash her brand-new diamond ring. It's all thanks to my Tiberius. He's a son who knows exactly how to please his mother. Tiberius is such a model son and so fortunate to have a wife like Zilia. Her business is quite large, isn't it? Another chimed in. At the mention of Zilia's name, Eudora's expression tightened for a second before she forced a strained smile. Ah, Zilia. Yes, she does work quite a lot, she said, with a tone suggesting that hard work was somehow shameful. But naturally, Tavares is the one who truly runs everything. Without Tavares, Zilia would be a nobody. My Tavares is brilliant. Tiberius, who was nearby, beamed with pride. He felt like a king. He had finally made it, fulfilling his mother's ultimate dream. He had proven himself a successful son. He checked his wristwatch. It had been almost an hour since his last message to Zilia. His wife's simple reply, understood, had greatly reassured him. Zilia was being submissive just as always. He could now enjoy the party without any disturbances. He felt he had everything perfectly under control, both his demanding mother and his wealthy wife. At that very moment, the catering manager, Mr. Budrow, approached him holding a tablet with a rather stiff smile. "Mr. Tiberius, good evening. Pardon the interruption, but as per the contract, the outstanding 50% of the catering fee is due for payment this evening." "Ah, certainly," Tiberius responded with composure. This was expected. He drew a platinum credit card from his wallet. It was a family card, one with an unrestricted credit limit that Celia had given him. "Just charge it here." Mr. Budrow accepted the card, sliding it through his portable payment device. After a few moments, he frowned. "My apologies, sir, but it's been declined." Tavarius's confident smile faltered slightly. "What, declined? Impossible." "Try it again, it must be bad reception." Mr. Budrow processed it a second time. "It is still declined, sir. It states the transaction was rejected." Faint murmurs began to circulate nearby. A few nearby guests witnessed the awkward moment, and Tavarius's face started to burn. "I have a different card," he said, his voice now slightly nervous. He pulled out an exclusive-looking black metal card. This was also a family account card given to him by Zilia. He gave the card to Mr. Budrow. "This one will absolutely work." Mr. Budrow swiped it. The outcome was identical. "This one has also been declined, Mr. Tiberius. It says the card is permanently blocked. It's cancelled." Tiberius nearly yelled. "What do you mean it's blocked? That's impossible." Panic set in as a wave of shame washed over his entire body. He could sense the guests' eyes locked upon him. "I apologize." Mr. Boucher's tone was now firm and cold. His courteous smile had vanished. "The total balance due is $30,000. Our company policy is quite strict. If payment isn't made, we must cease all service." "Stop service." "The party is in progress," snapped Tavarius. "We will stop serving the drinks, and our chefs will cease preparing the main courses. If this isn't settled within 30 minutes, we will start to clear away the buffet." "Are you out of your mind?" Tiberius was genuinely panicking. Mother Eudora noticed the growing commotion and came over. "Tiberius, what's the issue? Why does Mr. Budrow look so angry?" Eudora's tone remained imperious. "There's an issue with the credit cards." "Madam," said Mr. Budrow, stated plainly, his respectful demeanor gone. "The catering bill has not been paid." Eudora's eyes grew wide with shock. "What, Tiberius? Why is it not paid? Where is your wife? Why did she not handle this matter?" Precisely at that moment, a second wave of chaos descended. The classical music abruptly ceased. Every guest turned to face the entrance. There stood 3 men dressed in dark suits. They were obviously not guests. Their faces were serious and tense. The one in the center, who seemed to hold the most authority, was Mr. Carmichael from the real estate group, a man Tiberius also knew. "Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We apologize for interrupting the festivities." Mr. Carmichael's voice echoed loudly and clearly throughout the now silent room. "I am Director Carmichael with Tuxedo Park Realty. I am searching for Mrs. Eudora and Mr. Tavarius." All eyes immediately shifted to Tavarius and Eudora. The pair felt as though they were under spotlights on a stage. "What? What's happening?" Mr. Carmichael asked Tavarius, his voice quivering. A very serious administrative problem has occurred, Carmichael stated, stepping forward. He had abandoned all sense of party etiquette. We just received a notice from both the bank and our legal team. Mrs. Zilla, the main payer and full guarantor of this house, has now withdrawn her consent for this entire transaction. What, screamed Eudora. Withdrawn consent? What exactly does that mean? This home has been paid for. My son's wife paid for it all. That's the issue, ma'am. Carmichael's voice was frigid. She paid, and she has now disputed the transaction. Mrs. Zilia alleges a situation of fraud and coercion. As the legal purchaser, she never consented to you receiving the keys. The funds wired this afternoon are now frozen by the bank, at her request. And legally, this property is now under dispute. A hush fell. The silence was so profound, you could hear ice clinking in a drink. A dispute? Eudora's face went ashen like a ghost. So what happens now? One guest asked, breaking the silence. This party is over, Carmichael announced firmly. To ensure legal security, we must request all guests vacate the property at once. We will be temporarily sealing the home until this legal matter is resolved. Chaos ensued. The guests, all high society women, didn't have to be asked again. They scurried out, whispering to one another. A few even laughed openly. The party of the year had become a living nightmare in a flash. This is impossible, Tiberius yelled. He pulled out his phone. He needed to reach Zilia. With shaking hands, he quickly dialed his wife's number. It rang, but no one picked up. He called again and got nothing. Pick up, Zilia, please pick up, Tiberius yelled in desperation. Eudora, witnessing his panic, pulled out her own phone. I'll call her. She must be scared of me. Eudora called. Rejected. She redialed. Voicemail. She dialed one more time. In the quiet, lavender-scented bathroom, Zilia just stared at the phone's glowing screen. As it vibrated aggressively on the vanity, a call from her husband, then her mother-in-law, then her husband. The phone just kept screaming. Zilia just smirked, shut her eyes, and relished the warm water surrounding her. Meanwhile, the chaos at the disputed house was escalating quickly. The same high society friends who sang Eudora's praises were now fleeing like rats from a ship that was going down. Their faces, once filled with false smiles, now displayed a mix of shock, pity, and most of all, a cruel delight. The biggest scandal of the year was playing out right in front of them. Good heavens, to have the house sealed off like this. What a disgrace. One woman whispered to her friend as they hurried to their car. I always knew they couldn't afford a place like this. The daughter-in-law must have been the one who paid for it. And now she's finally had enough. It serves them right. Her friend replied hastily, snapping pictures of the home's facade. Just as the developer's security detail began to show up, Eudora was frozen in place on the grand marble terrace that, minutes before, was her victory stage. She was trembling violently, but not from the chill. It was from fury and a humiliating shame. Her glittering dress now just looked like a clown's costume. The heavy makeup on her face started to melt from a cold sweat. Tiberius, why isn't she answering her phone? Eudora screamed hysterically. She glared at Tiberius with wide eyes. This is all because of you. Why did you have to send her that message? Why did you tell her not to come? Tiberius, who was repeatedly hitting the call button, froze in place. His mother admitting that in front of the developer's people and the leftover caterers had been a terrible mistake. Mr. Carmichael from the real estate agency raised an eyebrow. I see so. You purposefully kept the legal purchaser from attending her own celebration. This just further supports Mrs. Zilia's accusations. You don't even care, Eudora yelled, turning back towards Tiberius. Call her again. Get her over here. Tell her to explain to everyone this is a misunderstanding. Hurry. I'm trying, Mother. She isn't picking up, Tiberius replied. He felt ashamed, but panic overwhelmed him. He had no idea what to do. As mother and son argued, Mr. Budrow from catering signaled his staff. Pack everything up. His command was succinct. The waiters, who had just been serving food with such agility, now moved with even greater speed. They started to stack dirty plates harshly. Wagyu sliders, grilled prawn salmon, All the untouched buffet food was swiftly covered and wheeled away on trolleys. They began ripping down every floral arrangement they had put up. The staff then dismantled the espresso machine and gathered up every single bottle. They operated with a swift efficiency resembling a crew of professional thieves. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" Eudora screamed. "You can't just take that food, it's no longer." "Paid for, ma'am," Mr. Budrow retorted with cold cynicism. "Since the payment was declined as per our contract, we are repossessing all items that belong to us. In the event of non-payment, all goods untouched food included return to our ownership." A few waiters even pulled off the tablecloths, exposing the bare wooden tables. The once lavish party now resembled a scene that had just been looted. Eudora's humiliation hit its peak. She had to witness them dismantle the last vestiges of her glory right before her. Once the caterers departed, the developers team stepped in. Mr. Carmichael produced a roll of big yellow stickers. "Mr. Tiberius, Mrs. Eudora, we deeply regret this situation, but we must ask that you vacate the premises." "What, you're throwing us out?" "This is our home," Eudora shrieked. "I'm afraid not, ma'am. Until the dispute is settled, the bank has seized this as developer property. If there are any crucial personal belongings, get them. You have 5 minutes," stated a large security guard with Carmichael. 5 minutes. Tavarius and Eudora possessed nothing there but their shattered pride. They stumbled down the terrace steps together, still wearing their most expensive party attire. Behind them, security slapped a large yellow sticker onto the magnificent wooden door. It read, "Access forbidden, legal dispute," as the guard then affixed an extra padlock to the main entrance. Eudora and Tiberius now stood on the pavement just outside the gates of their dream home. The garden lights remained on, casting an ironic glow on their pale, defeated expressions. The last guests' cars sped by their occupants, not even offering a wave, as though they were annoyed. This is just a bad dream, Tiberius. Isn't it?" Eudora whispered, her legs giving out. She collapsed onto the dusty curb, soiling her expensive gown. Tiberius gave no reply. He stared at his phone at the dozens of missed calls he had, and dozens of messages showing only a single gray checkmark. He frantically typed new messages. "Zilia, answer your phone. Zilia, pick up right now. Mother's about to collapse because of this. What is this about you blocking the cards? Have you lost your mind? You've humiliated me and Mother. I told you to pick up." His stream of messages went completely unanswered. Tiberius fought the urge to throw his phone into traffic, feeling desperate, furious, and terrified. In her apartment, Zilia finally emerged from the bathroom. Clad in comfortable cotton pajamas with her hair wrapped securely in a towel, she reached for her personal phone, which was still buzzing. She observed Tiberius's frantic messages, reading every single one with a completely serene expression, as her graceful fingers typed out a reply. Ignoring the flood of questions from Tiberius, she simply composed a single, simple sentence. It was direct and sharp, aimed precisely at the heart of his arrogance. "Is something wrong, darling? You said Mother did not want me there." The message delivered showing 2 blue check marks in front of the sealed home. On the darkened sidewalk, Tiberius's phone buzzed. It was Zilia's response. He opened it hastily, clinging to a sliver of hope. Eudora leaned in as well, and they read the words together. "Is something the matter, darling? You told me Mother didn't want me to be there." Silence. In that one moment, Tiberius and Eudora understood this was not an accident. This was not a banking glitch, nor a simple misunderstanding. This was pure revenge. Zilia knew. She knew it all, and she had orchestrated every part of this. Tiberius's panic morphed into terror while Eudora's rage dissolved into absolute fear. It dawned on them that they hadn't just insulted a compliant wife, they had awakened a dormant dragon. The street outside the lavish Tuxedo Park community was cold and quiet, a stark contrast to the party's splendor they had just experienced. Humiliated and ejected, Eudora and Tiberius now found themselves quite literally on the street. They waited on the curb like a pair of beggars dressed in fine attire as several Ubers they hailed drove right past. They likely didn't want to collect passengers from a place where a scene had just unfolded. Finally, after enduring the shame for almost 30 minutes, a vehicle finally pulled over for them. The inside of the car was filled with an oppressive silence. Tiberius took the front passenger seat, his fingers tapping furiously on his phone, firing off unanswered angry messages. Eudora sat in the back, her head resting against the window. Her pale face was now distorted by restrained fury, her luxurious gown itching her sweat-dampened skin. The driver glanced at them from the side, in his rearview mirror. He sensed the palpable tension, but stayed quiet. "Where are we headed?" the driver asked softly. As they neared the highway on-ramp, Tiberius said nothing, unsure how to respond. Were they to return to that little, old house his mother constantly griped about, or head to Zilia's place, that lavish penthouse in Midtown? To Peachtree Street, Eudora rasped from the back. Her voice was strained. "We need to confront that woman and make her undo all of this." Tiberius nodded in agreement. "To Peachtree Street, please," he instructed the driver. He needed to speak with Zilia. This had to be a bluff. Zilia adored him. Surely he could sway her again with a mix of stern anger and a little bit of pleading. Zilia would revert to being the obedient wife he was so accustomed to. Upon reaching the lobby of her luxurious apartment building, Tiberius faced his first obstacle. He promptly swiped the access card at the main door. A red light glowed failure. He swiped again, and again it failed. Access denied. Tiberius cursed under his breath. "What now?" Eudora yelled. "The card is not working." Tiberius growled back. "Mr. Tiberius." A security guard from the lobby approached them. "My apologies, sir, but per the owner's request, your keycard has been suspended." "The owner, I'm her husband." Tiberius was beginning to have a complete breakdown. "I am sorry, but regulations are regulations. We must first contact Mrs. Zilia's unit to get approval for your entry," the guard stated with polite firmness. Eudora's face instantly flushed a deep crimson. Ejected from her new home, and now she was forced to request entry like some common guest. To get into the apartment she already saw as her son's, it was a fresh, unbearable level of disgrace. The guard then buzzed the intercom. "Good evening, Mrs. Zilia. It's security. Mr. Tiberius and Mrs. Eudora are down here in the lobby. Should I grant them access?" A moment of tense silence followed. Tiberius held his breath. If Zilia turned them away right there in the lobby, his entire world would collapse. Zilia's composed voice came through the speaker. "Send them up. I am expecting them." A wave of relief washed over Tiberius. "See, she's expecting me," he said smugly to the guard, and pulled his mother by the arm towards the lift. The ascent felt agonizingly slow. Tiberius tried to smooth out his rumpled shirt. Eudora attempted to fix her disheveled hair. They were bracing for battle. Ding! The elevator doors slid open to the penthouse. Tiberius didn't bother knocking. The front door was already slightly open. He shoved it open with considerable force. "Zilia, what is the meaning of all this?" he yelled, storming in. The sight that greeted him left him utterly speechless. Zilia was not in tears, not afraid, and certainly not panicking. She was lounging comfortably on the living room couch, wearing simple cotton pajamas, her damp hair wrapped neatly in a towel. On the coffee table before her sat a steaming mug of ginger tea. She appeared serene and refreshed, like she'd just had a spa day at home, a harsh contrast to the disheveled Tiberius and Eudora, who were grimy, weary, and seething with rage. "Have a seat," Zilia offered quietly. Her voice was as still as the surface of a pond. "Sit down!" Eudora lunged forward, yelling, "You put us through that public humiliation, and you have the nerve to tell us to sit down. Do you realize what you've done? Listen, Zilia, I have no idea what kind of game this is, but you've taken it way too far," Tiberius interjected. His voice was a volatile mix of fury and fear. "You made a complete spectacle of us in front of everyone. You cut off my credit cards, you locked up my mother's house. Have you lost your mind?" Zilia simply stared at Tiberius. She looked deep into her husband's eyes, searching for a glimmer of the man she had fallen for. But there was nothing left, just pure fear and selfishness. Crazy. Zilia finally spoke. Her tone remained low, but her words were razor sharp. Who's the crazy one, me, for working myself to the bone to buy your dream house, or is it you, who lives off my money while you badmouth me behind my back? Tavarius stood there in silence. That I humiliated you. Zilia uttered a short, humorless laugh. Didn't your mother herself say she didn't want me there? I was only following her instructions. I stayed away. I merely reclaimed what is rightfully mine. Your property, Eudora shrieked. None of this is yours. Everything you possess is because of my son Tavarius. Without my son, you would be a nobody. Everything you own is also his. His assets, you say. Zilia turned her gaze to her mother-in-law. Her faint smile vanished, replaced by an icy expression Tavarius had never witnessed before. Let's stick to the facts, shall we, mother? I established my company a full 6 years before I ever married Tavarius. I purchased this entire penthouse with cash. 2 entire years before I even met him. The vehicles in the garage are registered to my business, and that opulent house you love to boast about was paid for 100% with my own money, so tell me, where exactly are your son's assets in this? Eudora was left completely speechless. She was unable to respond. Zilia, stop this nonsense. Tiberius cut in, trying to steer the conversation. His tone softened considerably as he shifted to a pleading strategy. Okay, you're right. I was wrong. I apologize for that text. My mother pressured me into it, you know how she can be. But this is too far, darling. Just reverse all this, contact the bank. Contact the developer, explain it was a misunderstanding. We can still fix this. Zilia just stared at him. Fix it. There is absolutely nothing to fix, Tiberius. That text wasn't an error. It was the truth, the one that finally opened my eyes. She rose from her chair. I'm done, she said calmly. Done? What's that supposed to mean? Tiberius asked. A dreadful feeling crept over him. Zilia strode toward the door where 2 large suitcases and a travel bag were waiting. He recognized the suitcases as his own. This marriage is over, and my function as your personal ATM is over too, Zilia stated. She nudged the suitcases forward with her foot. Those are your things. I packed what I could find: designer clothes, your watch collection, all your shoes. Tiberius's eyes widened in absolute horror. Are you kicking me out? I'm not kicking you out, Zilia corrected calmly. I am simply sending you back to where you belong. This apartment is mine. I paid for it with my own blood and sweat, and I refuse to breathe the same air as someone who disrespects me and schemes with his mother to swindle me. How dare you watch your words, Zilia, screamed Eudora. You enjoyed my funds, but then told me not to attend the event I paid for. If that's not being duped, what is? Zilia retorted. Now I'm asking you to leave, both of you. Zilia, please don't, Tiberius begged, truly terrified. He reached out for Zilia's hand, but she recoiled as if his touch were fire. Don't you touch me? Her voice rose for the first time. I've already had your car repossessed. They are coming for it tomorrow at 9 in the morning. The credit cards are already frozen, and in the morning my lawyer will be sending over the divorce papers. No, no, Tiberius stammered, shaking his head in disbelief. Oh, and one final thing. Zilia gave a cynical smile. Do enjoy your new house. Now, which one was that again? Ah, yes. The one that's still completely sealed off. She swung the door wide, pointing to the exit. Now out, she commanded. Eudora, seeing Tiberius paralyzed by shock, moved to shove Zilia out of the way. You can't do this to my boy. Zilia caught Eudora's arm with shocking strength. Don't you dare touch me in my own house again. Mother-in-law. Zilia growled, her eyes practically shooting flames. If you don't leave this second, I will have security drag you out. Zilia's expression genuinely frightened Eudora, who took a step back. With trembling hands, Tiberius dragged his luggage, looking at Zilia one last time, searching for mercy but found only a wall of steel. He and his mother left the penthouse, and the instant they crossed the threshold, Zilia said, "Goodbye, Mr. Tiberius," and "Goodbye, Eudora," before the door swung shut. The sound of the double lock sliding into place could be heard from inside. Tiberius and Eudora now stood in the sterile cold. opulent hallway next to their pile of suitcases. They were now officially without a home. Tiberius slammed his fist into the wall in utter frustration. Zilia, come on, open up. We can still discuss this, Zilia. No response came, just silence. That night stretched into an eternity for Tiberius and Eudora. They were utterly stranded. Returning to Eudora's old duplex in East Point on the city's fringe felt like their most shameful option. But it was their only choice. Check into a hotel and pay with what all of Tiberius's cards were declined. The money in his wallet was barely enough to cover the Uber fare. They finally arrived at the old house well after midnight. The house, vacant for weeks, had a musty smell and was thick with dust. Eudora, still clad in her party gown, finally erupted. This is all on you, Tiberius. If you had just been firmer, not so dependent on that woman's fortune. Eudora lashed out at her son, forgetting her own endless material wants. You were the one who told me to send the message, Tiberius retorted, pulling no punches. You were the one who said you didn't want to see her at the party. They clashed violently in the dusty living room, ironically encircled by Tavares's collection of designer suitcases. That night, they retired to cramped rooms with broken hearts simmering with mutual resentment. The next morning, reality struck even harder. Tiberius was awakened by his cell phone's chime. It wasn't a call, but the alarm. 9:20 in the morning. And in that moment, a sudden memory hit him. The car. He sprinted outside. Just as he feared, parked before his mother's small building, stood his white Cadillac Escalade, the company car from Zilia. Two heavy-set men stepped out. Tavares opened his mouth to shout, but noticed the vehicle was already parked beyond the property's fence. One man simply approached him. Mr. Tiberius, we represent the company's asset recovery division. Director Zilia has ordered this vehicle to be repossessed, the man said, displaying the work order. Tiberius was helpless. He could do nothing but hand over the keys obediently. He watched as the lavish car he drove so proudly was driven away by another man. Now he was left with absolutely nothing. The hits kept coming. At around 11 a.m., while Tiberius and Eudora picked at a pathetic breakfast of coffee and stale bread, a motorcycle messenger pulled up to the house. I have documents for a Mr. Tiberius and a Mrs. Eudora. Tiberius went out reluctantly. The messenger passed him two thick brown envelopes, one for himself, one for his mother. Eudora grabbed the envelope with suspicion, tearing it open roughly. Her eyes widened upon seeing the logo at the top of the page inside. Tuxedo Park Realty, she read in a hushed tone. It was an official notice. The letter announced the cancellation of their purchase contract, citing the dispute filed by Mrs. Zilla and the subsequent rejection of payment. It specified that a large portion of the deposit they had already paid would be forfeited for penalties and damages from the canceled party. The house. It's gone. Eudora whispered, her voice frail. Her body trembled, and had she not grabbed the door frame for support, she certainly would have fallen. But Tiberius didn't hear her. He was engrossed in his own envelope. This envelope felt thicker. It bore the crest of a well-known Atlanta law firm. As he opened it, his heart hammered in his chest. Complaint for divorce. The words jumped out at him. Tavares read each page with trembling hands. This was no simple separation. It was a lawsuit over the division of assets, and Zilia and her lawyer had prepared it with extreme prejudice. The legal filing was meticulously clear. Zilia sought to dissolve the marriage on grounds of unjust treatment, deceit, and financial manipulation by her husband and his family. The most damning section was the appendix. It contained dozens of pages of evidence, photocopies of bank records detailing the transfer of millions of dollars from Zilia's finances into the accounts of Tavares and Eudora, proof of transfers for the house mortgage, along with receipts for every catering and decorating expense, duplicates of the deeds to her apartment and business holdings, all acquired long before she was married. And her demand was unambiguous. Zilia insisted on a rigorous separation of property. Her personal property was to remain entirely untouched. Regarding marital assets nearly non-existent, as Tiberius earned no income, Zilia expressed a willingness to split them. However, the most crushing blow was Zilia's demand that Tavarius repay every company perk he had ever enjoyed, classifying it all as a personal debt. Tavarius collapsed onto the floor of the filthy porch, utterly broken. He was completely and totally ruined. Zilia wasn't merely divorcing him, she was financially destroying him to his very core. Tavarius, what does your letter say? Eudora demanded urgently, noticing her son's ashen complexion. Wordlessly, Tavarius passed her the documents. Eudora began to read. While the legal jargon was lost on her, she clearly grasped the meaning of divorce complaint and a claim for damages. The fury that had momentarily subsided erupted once more within Eudora, but she realized rage would not fix this. She needed a new strategy, and her devious mind started to churn. No. Eudora whispered, her eyes narrowing with calculation. She won't go through with this. She still loves you, Tiberius. Just angry, angry mother, she is financially destroying us. Then we must make her anger fade. Eudora set a monstrous plan taking shape in her mind. We will beg for her forgiveness. We must melt her heart once more. I will get on my knees before her. I will weep in her presence. She's a good-hearted girl. She won't be able to stand seeing her mother-in-law on her knees. Tavarius stared at his mother. He understood her scheme perfectly. This wasn't a genuine apology, it was a performance. But it was their only remaining option. That afternoon, the pair took an Uber to Zilia's company, clad in modest attire. Eudora deliberately disheveled her hair to appear more pitiful. They entered the grand lobby of the fashion empire. Noticing the wretched state of Tiberius and Eudora, the receptionists intercepted them at once. May I help you? We are here to see Director Zilia. I am her husband, Tavarius. Director Zilia is currently in a meeting, and your names are indeed on a list. The receptionist stated, glancing at her computer monitor. Mr. Tavarius and Mrs. Eudora have been placed on the restricted access list. You are not permitted to enter the premises. What? Tavarius slammed his fist on the reception desk. Precisely then, the elevator doors chimed and slid open. Zilia emerged, flanked by two executives. She wore a tailored navy blue suit that commanded an air of authority. Her expression was bright and sharp, as though the previous night's events meant nothing. She was sharing a light laugh with the executives about something. The moment she saw Zilia, Eudora rushed forward and commenced her act. Zilia, my dear daughter. Eudora cried, collapsing to her knees on the floor and desperately reaching for Zilia's legs. I've made a terrible mistake, daughter. Eudora shrieked, tears streaming, drawing every eye in the entire lobby. Employees nearby paused to murmur as she cried, I am a sinner. I was mad. Please don't leave Tiberius, my daughter. He's going through so much. Just look at us. We are completely wretched. Please forgive me. Tiberius stood just behind her, wearing the most pitiful and persuasive expression he could manage. Zilia halted, her smile vanishing completely. She gazed down at the groveling figure, then at Eudora, and finally at Tiberius. Not a single trace of compassion could be found in her eyes, just profound contempt. She sighed, turning to the executive, Langston. Please call security. Zilia, it's me, your mama. Eudora shrieked with more volume. Zilia bent down slightly, though not to help Eudora up. She stared directly into her mother-in-law's eyes, which were filled with crocodile tears. You are not my mother, Zilia said quietly, her voice ringing clearly through the hushed lobby. My own mother taught me about honor and integrity. You only ever wanted my money. Zilia then stood tall and declared, This pathetic performance is concluded. Two security guards swiftly approached, asking, Is there a problem, boss? Please escort these two individuals out of the building. Zilia's tone became composed and professional. Ensure they do not set foot in my company headquarters ever again. Understood, boss. The guards took hold of Eudora and Tiberius's arms. No, unhand me, Zilia. Heaven will punish you, you unthankful creature. Abruptly, Eudora's sobbing stopped, her face twisting into a mask of pure, terrifying rage. Her entire charade was exposed in a moment. She began kicking and screaming profanities. Tiberius could only comply and follow meekly. As they hauled him away, He glanced back at Zilia, but she didn't even turn. Zilia merely straightened her attire, pivoted, and walked toward the elevator, resuming her talk with the executive as if the incident never occurred. As they forced Eudora through the lobby's glass doors, she managed to scream out one final time. "You'll live to regret this, Zilia. You will end up old and all alone." Then the glass doors slid shut, silencing her voice. Zilia, safe inside the elevator, allowed a small smile to form. She had moved past regret. She was now entering a realm of freedom. The months that followed became a living nightmare for Tiberius and Eudora. After their shameful ejection from Zilia's company, they retreated to the cramped East Point house. The home they had once arrogantly abandoned for their dream mansion now seemed like a confining and wretched prison cell. The disastrous party, their foreclosed house, and the degrading tale of Eudora's removal from Zilia's company lobby spread like a wildfire. Eudora's supposed high society friends didn't just distance themselves, they began to actively make her the punchline at every social event. "Eudora, you mean the one with the scene? Ha ha ha. I hear she's back in that hovel. Such a shame. It shows you shouldn't be prideful, especially with your daughter-in-law's funds." Eudora, who craved social acceptance, fell apart completely. She locked herself in her room for many days. She declined all food, not daring to leave the house, fearing she might see her neighbors. The stress, the shame, along with her poor eating, made her health decline rapidly. Her high blood pressure returned and her diabetes flared up. The very woman who once flaunted glittering gowns was now confined to a creaky bed in old sleepwear, bemoaning her destiny. In the meantime, Tiberius desperately sought an escape. His savings, really just leftovers from Zilia's generosity, were rapidly vanishing on daily living costs. He had to find employment. But what skills did he possess? His role as marketing director at Zilia's company was purely for show. He had never truly worked. Lacking any genuine skills, Tiberius distributed fabricated resumes citing his director experience. He secured a few interviews, but every single one of them ended in disaster. Seasoned recruiters swiftly saw that the man seated before them was utterly hollow. "Mr. Tiberius, your CV states you boosted exports by 200%. Can you detail the specific strategy you employed? How did you analyze the European market?" a company's HR director inquired. Tiberius fumbled for words. Certainly. Through hard work and observing trends. Yes, I noticed the trends online." The interviewer merely smiled thinly and closed the folder. "Thank you, Mr. Tiberius, we'll call you," was the standard code for rejection. Following dozens of such dismissals, Tiberius started to lose hope. He had to lower his standards from director to manager, rejected. Then to section head, also rejected. Then to an entry-level position, rejected. At last, filled with immense shame, he had to take any job available. He began driving for Uber, using a rental car with a crushing daily fee. The lavish life he once knew, premium cars, costly watches, fine dining, now felt like a far-off fantasy. His new reality was sitting for hours in a tobacco-scented rental car, just waiting for a fare. He often came home with just enough for fuel and food, and the cramped house became a constant war zone. The ailing Eudora grew more and more demanding and short-tempered. Tiberius, drained in body and spirit, was also quick to anger. "Tiberius, where's the money? My pills are gone? What kind of work are you doing? You can't even make enough for your own mother's medicine," Eudora yelled from her room. "Money, money, money. You think earning it is easy?" Tiberius shot back, slamming the car keys onto the table. "I drive from sunrise to sunrise for this. It's hardly enough for rice and an egg. You weren't this way when Zilia was around. You were a good son back then." At the mention of Zilia's name, the veins on Tiberius's neck bulged. "Stop, mother. Just stop. Who is to blame for everything that happened? It's your fault, your vanity. If only you hadn't been so greedy. If you had not insulted Zilia, we wouldn't be like this. Now you're blaming your own mother. You're the one who failed as a husband. You're the one who couldn't manage his own wife. You are a fool. Tiberius, a fool." Such arguments became their daily ritual. They blamed and cursed one another. No love remained between the mother and son. All that was left was hatred and belated regret. They were caught together in a poverty trap of their own making. To get by, they began selling what was left in the house, old furniture, the fake jewelry Eudora once flaunted. Everything went for rock-bottom prices. The divorce between Tiberius and Zilia was swift. Zilia only demanded what was rightfully hers. And because all the assets had initially been hers, Tiberius left the marriage with only his collection of suitcases and a mountain of debt from company benefits that Zilia's lawyer successfully reclaimed from him. One afternoon, after making a pittance from driving all day, Tiberius pulled the rental car over, feeling exhausted and famished. He pulled out his phone, hoping social media would offer a brief escape. That's when a post from a major news outlet caught his eye. The post featured an interview video. A face he recognized all too well filled the small screen. It was Zilia. She looked utterly transformed, radiating a new brilliance, her attire and poise even more refined than he remembered. She was a guest on a prominent business program. Director Zilia, congratulations, we understand you've just recently secured the year's largest export deal with a prestigious Milan fashion house, the host inquired. Zilia on screen offered a serene and self-assured smile. Thank you. This is a credit to my entire team's hard work. We've just launched a new fashion collection, crafted from eco-friendly recycled materials, and the reception from the European market has been overwhelmingly positive. You are an inspiration, successful in your career and visibly happy. What's your secret? Because as we know, you recently endured a challenging chapter in your personal life. Zilia let out a small laugh. A challenging chapter. I wouldn't describe it like that. I consider it more of a necessary cleansing. You know, for a room to feel clean and fresh once more, you first have to take out the garbage. My secret is simple. I focus on things I can control and release anything that weighs me down. With trembling hands, Tiberius shut off his phone. Take out the garbage. Release what weighs me down. She was talking about him. In Zilia's eyes, he and his mother were the garbage. He slammed his fist on the steering wheel. But he wasn't mad at Zilia. For the very first time, he was furious with himself, with his own profound foolishness. He saw what he'd thrown away. He once held a diamond, but he'd discarded it to pursue a grand empty facade, and now he was left with absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, Zilia was giving her interview in a cool television studio, while the former director Tiberius sat alone in a sweltering rental car, with a gnawing hunger and a broken spirit. Karma had delivered its verdict flawlessly. A year had gone by since that catastrophic inauguration night for Tiberius and Eudora. It was a year of misery for him, but for Zilia it was 365 days of liberation and progress. Her divorce had been officially finalized 6 months prior. The judge granted every one of Zilia's requests, as her evidence of ownership was irrefutable and clear. The asset division proceeded smoothly. Tiberius attempted to contest it, demanding a portion of the company. But he only ended up embarrassing himself in court. His legal counsel couldn't substantiate a single dollar of contribution from Tiberius. Conversely, Zilia's attorney easily demonstrated the hundreds of thousands of dollars Tiberius had drained from the company while offering nothing in return. Tiberius walked out of that courtroom a completely broken man, liberated from the weight of a toxic marriage. Zilia channeled all of her energy into 2 areas, her business and her personal joy, and the outcomes were simply spectacular. That eco-friendly fashion line Tiberius witnessed on his phone became a global sensation. Her company's growth was exponential. She established 2 new factories and created hundreds of jobs. She had done more than just recover. She was soaring to far greater heights than ever before. The Zilia of today was a different woman. While she remained softly spoken, she now possessed an air of confidence and unwavering resolve. She no longer wavered when making critical decisions. She stopped trying to appease everyone. She had come to understand that her own value wasn't defined by others' validation, least of all from a man like Tiberius or a mother-in-law like Eudora. To commemorate the company's success, for the 1-year anniversary of her liberation, Zilia organized an event, not the vain high society party that Eudora would have wanted. She hosted a gathering of gratitude at a far more meaningful place, a large community center and youth shelter in Atlanta. It was a place she had been supporting discreetly. The center's hall was decorated simply yet vibrantly without imported flowers or luxury catering that cost thousands of dollars. Instead, there were bright balloons, enormous cakes, and hundreds of mouth-watering meal boxes, sourced from a home-based catering business managed by a single mother that she supported. Her guests of honor were not celebrities adorned with gold bracelets, but cheerfully laughing orphans and sincerely smiling elderly folks. Zilia was sitting on the floor amongst the children dressed in a simple white frock that was remarkably elegant. She was feeding a little child and smiling broadly at the child's babbling. Her expression was free of any burden. There was only tranquility. "I am here," Zilia stated, beginning her brief speech, not as a company director but as an individual who wishes to share her gratitude. "This past year has taught me a great deal, especially about releasing control." She gazed upon the sincere faces before her. "Sometimes the greatest thing we can do is let go, release our burdens, relinquish the past, and release the people who poison our spirit. Because it is only with empty hands that we can receive new, more wonderful blessings." The gathering concluded with a collective prayer. Zilia symbolically presented a major donation for the complete remodeling of the facilities. The staff and children were moved to tears, offering up endless prayers of gratitude for Zilia. At nearly the exact same moment, in a dust-choked corner of the hot city, a long queue had formed before a humble building. It had a sign that read, "Soup Kitchen Friday Distribution." People with worn clothes, tired faces, and vacant stares waited silently with their empty bowls and lunch containers. In the center of that queue were two contrasting individuals, but both were equally miserable. A thin, sickly-looking elderly woman leaned upon a younger man wearing a worn, twisted bandana. The man in a faded t-shirt stared straight ahead with a vacant expression. They were Eudora and Tiberius. This was their new existence after Tiberius failed to pay the rental car fee, losing the car and his driving job. They had been left completely destitute. They survived on neighbors' compassion and now by waiting in line at soup kitchens. "Shuffle forward, Tiberius, I'm starving," Eudora complained. Her voice was faint, yet it still carried its usual brusque tone. "Be patient, mother. The line is always long." Tiberius replied, his voice completely devoid of emotion. "This is entirely your fault. If you hadn't been so utterly foolish back then," his mother began, but for the very first time, Tiberius interjected. He did not cut her off with anger, but with a profound exhaustion. "Enough. It is useless. Just wait in the queue, we are almost at the front." Eudora was taken aback by his tone of voice and fell silent. She glanced at her son, then at the line. She finally realized there was no one left to blame, nor was there anything left at all. This marked the end of everything. Meanwhile, at the community center, the event had just ended. Zilia strolled alone through the lovely garden, savoring the gentle sunset breeze as her assistant approached her. "Ma'am, the car is prepared. The interview with the International Business Magazine is set for 5 o'clock." Zilia nodded. Her gaze met the crimson sunset. A deep peace washed over her. She'd forgiven Tiberius and Eudora not for them, but entirely for herself. She forgave to purge the final toxins of the past. As she approached her car, a sudden memory surfaced in her mind. She recalled the woman she once was willing to sacrifice it all just to buy a lavish home for her mother-in-law, only to be met with insults. A faint smile touched her lips. "I was once desperate to buy them a house," she mused, opening the door to her own car. While she might not have a chauffeur, fate in exchange had given her something far more priceless. A palace they could never imprison her in. A sanctuary called freedom. She slipped into the driver's seat, adjusted her scarf, and drove into the future of her own making. Did this story resonate with you, and what city are you watching from? Let's connect in the comments below. If this story moved, you consider showing your support with a super thanks, so I can continue to share more tales like this. Thank you dearly for your wonderful support. I can't wait to read your thoughts on it. You'll now see 2 new life stories on your screen that I highly recommend. There are plenty more tales to discover on my channel. Remember to subscribe. I'll see you in the next life story with love and respect.